Will the House please come to order? We are on 32. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 32 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 3, line 22.
Representative Briefedese. Please come back to order. Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move number 32.
There's been an objection. Representative
you.
Eastman.
I was
Representative Carpenter.
Section 180 of our manual, as we discussed previously, talks about dilatory motions. Section 180 of our Mason's manual talks about dilatory motions. This is intent language like the previous amendment, and I move that it's tabled.
Briefedese. Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was speaking to the next amendment, not to the current amendment.
You're withdrawing your motion. Thank you. Representative Eastman.
thank you, Madam Speaker. I was hoping that the previous amendment would have passed, but since it didn't, I have a compromise amendment here. This also deals with public broadcasting, and in this case, instead of removing the $1.5 million to take it back to the governor's budget, this would simply move $0.5 million, leaving an increase of $1 million for public radio from the governor's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Briefedese. Will the House please come back to order? Just to alleviate any questions, yes, we took amendment number 35 out of order. We are back in chronological order now, starting with amendment 32, and everything will be named or numbered accordingly going forward from this point, just to alleviate any questions. Is there any debate on amendment number 32? Representative Foster.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to mention with regard to public broadcasting, it's important for a variety of reasons. The content varies from, one radio station to another, but some of the things that you will hear are they announce, they have, when a public meeting or a city council meeting is going to be held. They air the actual city council meetings in a lot of our small communities. They announce weather. They give weather alerts. Are there going to be high seas? You shouldn't go boating. Is there going to be flooding on the Yukon? It's a good idea to go pull your boat out of the river. It's going to be 40 below here in the next couple of days. You shouldn't take that 60-mile, snow machine trip out into the country, hunting and so forth and so on. There's other emergency information that's announced. So I just wanted to say that, public broadcasting in rural Alaska is very important. Not everybody has a TV. Not everybody, the amount of internet that everybody has is much less so, I think, in some of our other areas of the state. So public broadcasting is very important. I support public broadcasting, and I oppose this amendment.
Thank you. Further, Representative Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I won't repeat the same arguments I said on Amendment 35. But they're the same for this. Basically, the budget's been zeroed out for many years. We added $1.5 million back in the subcommittee. And I agree with the previous speaker from Nome. The programming on these stations is not NPR programming all day long, and some of it is music, and some of it is various shows and local information and weather, and it's varied programming, especially in the smaller communities. So I don't believe I don't support this amendment.
Thank you. Representative McCabe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To be clear, nobody's against public radio, public broadcasting, public radio in the villages. What we are concerned about in places that's all they have. And in fact, that's exactly what we're concerned about, is that's all they have. So it's too easy to tell one side of the story to people where all they have is public broadcasting and not tell the other side of the story. So our attempt, what we should be doing as legislators, is ensuring that what they are telling people in the villages, in other places that only have public broadcasting, that only have this single radio station, that they are fairly and equitably reporting and balanced reporting the news and the programs. So I don't think any of us disagrees that this is a very important program. What we disagree with is the content that's coming through that radio. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Further debate. Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I grew up on public radio broadcasting. Bob Ross still can't paint, but Bob Ross says that's okay. The question I have for this and the maker of the amendment and this process there is, we have public radio. We also have other radio stations that get donations. I contribute to KIC up in Nome. I wish that we would get a dividend so that people, if they don't need the money, they could contribute to their their nonprofits like KIC and stuff. But the question is this money available only for public radio, or is it also available for other radio stations like KIC in Nome? So if they could address that question, thanks.
Thank you. Representative Edgmond.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to use my first opportunity to stand up on the operating budget to defend public broadcasting and to say that any suggestion that public broadcasting is wantonly political or partisan, to me, suggests that people aren't listening to public broadcasting. Out in Dillingham, KDLG broadcasts, as a representative from Nome talked about, a whole bunch of things that are very important to the general public out there. We don't get other radio stations, of course, but the little station in KDLG, because of state budget cuts, vetoes that have occurred, now have less money to actually match federal monies and to be in compliant with the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, which oversees all the content of public radio. There have been a number of times where I couldn't appear on the radio for fundraising drives because it was an election year, or I couldn't appear on the radio because I was a legislator, that I felt was pretty fair. And so I want to stand up here in defense of KDLG, KUCB, and Madam Speaker, KMXT and Kodiak, and to say that an important voice for fisheries on public radio, Lainey Welch, basically is easing out of the picture. In fact, today was her last column that ran in the the Anchorage Daily News. So to me, public broadcasting is near and dear. I think it's critical, and I don't think it gets funded enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate. Representative Pocketuck.
Madam Speaker, like the speakers before me from 37 and 39, very important reasons to have public radio. But I also agree with some of the concerns that the member from District 8 brought up and appreciate them. And I know that this isn't the way to do that, but I get the message loud and clear. And one of the other reasons that I feel strongly about public radio, back in high school, I was a DJ volunteering from the high school, and you wouldn't guess my DJ name. It was DJ Muktuk Man. So there's plenty of important reasons why we need public radio. If it's to broadcast my 3A girls beating Sitka for the state championship, or most importantly, if it's to broadcast whales that are caught in the community, I support public radio and will not be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Further debate? Representative Cronk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate what the three prior members did talk about. I can't even tell you the name of the station in Toke. It's 89.5, but there's nothing more enjoyable to turn on 89.5 and hear the talks between villages and all the music and stuff they play. So I'm definitely supportive of the public radio, especially out in the bush. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate? Representative Eastman in wrap-up.
Thank you. So for Amendment 32 before us, again, the governor's budget included no grants for public radio. Currently in our budget, we have $1.5 million in grants for public radio. This amendment would reduce that number to $1 million in grants for public radio. Of course, that's $1 million can go towards the music and varied programming that was spoken of earlier, some of which has great benefit and value to members here and to many of those constituents represented here. This, of course, does not limit in any way the donations and money from other sources that these radio stations can collect and can accept. They can continue to do that. And in addition to those donations, we will be, through this budget, giving them $1 million in grants. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall Amendment Number 32 to Committee Substitute for House Bill 281 pass the House? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
12 yeas, 27 nays.
With 12 yeas and 27 nays, Amendment Number 32 has failed to pass the House. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 33 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment Number 33.
Representative McCabe.
I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment 33 be tabled.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall Amendment Number 33 to Committee Substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Representative Rauscher. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
35 yeas, 4 nays.
With 35 yeas and 4 nays, Amendment Number 33 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 34 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I'll move Amendment Number 34.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment Number 34 be tabled.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall Amendment Number 34 to Committee Substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Well, Representative Rauscher. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any other member wish to change their vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 5 nays.
With 34 yeas and 5 nays, Amendment Number 34 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 36 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment Number 36.
Representative McCabe.
Speaker, I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment 36 be tabled.
Object.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall amendment number 36 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 5 nays.
With 34 yeas and 5 nays, amendment number 36 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 37 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment 37.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that amendment number 37 be tabled as well.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 37 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 5 nays.
With 34 yeas and 5 nays, amendment number 37 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 38 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 34, following line 7.
Representative Eastman.
I move 38.
Representative McCabe.
Madam Speaker, I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment 38 be tabled.
Object.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 38 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
35 yeas, 4 nays.
With 35 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 38 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 39 by Representatives Tilton, Laban, and Thompson, beginning page 18, lines 14 through 18.
Representative Tilton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to withdraw amendment number 49 at this time. 39, excuse me, amendment number 39. I'm jumping way ahead. Just to save time.
Are you, Representative Tilton? Are you not offering it, or are you withdrawing it?
Not offering. It's fine.
Brief it easy. Will the House please come back to order? I am rolling amendment number 39 to the bottom of the calendar. 39. It was not offered. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 40 by Representatives Tilton, Laban, and Thompson, beginning page 13, lines 23 through 27.
Representative Tilton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I will not be offering amendment number 40 at this time.
I am rolling amendment number 40 to the bottom of the calendar. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 41 by Representatives Laban, Kaufman, and Thompson, beginning page 18, line 16.
Representative Laban.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oh,
I will not
excuse me.
be offering,
Excuse me.
I will not be offering amendment number 41.
Okay. I am rolling Amendment 41 to the bottom of the calendar. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 42 by Representatives Thompson and Laban, beginning page 4, line 18.
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Amendment 42.
There's been an objection. Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment proposes a new subsection in the language section and multiple transactions in the numbers section of the operating budget. The purpose of this amendment is to eliminate bonuses for recruitment and retention where it appears within the bill for non-covered state employees. Bonuses for non-covered employees have been included in the budgets of the Department of Commerce, Community, and Economic Development and in the criminal and civil divisions of the Department of Law. An opinion from our legal department basically said that providing such bonuses would probably be found in violation of state statutes and state law. An opinion, anyway, the legal opinion goes into great detail as to how bonuses for non-covered employees can be funded. Substantive legislation must be enacted before bonuses or other monetary agreements can be approved for appropriation. There is a matter of fairness as to why some employees, covered or non-covered, would receive a bonus while others within that same agency would not. In addition, if salaries are deemed to be not adequate, and salary studies should be might be needed to determine, and they should be undertaken rather than giving bonuses. It's more equitable. It's a more equitable way of distributing pay increases, and we got to make it legal. Studies take too long to conduct instead of putting one in, and if that's true, then maybe we should change our laws. It should also be noted that in 2005, the legislature passed a bill which was signed into law prohibiting legislative employees from being awarded or paid a bonus. That's found in Alaska Statute 2410-220. So I encourage everybody to, let's stick with the law. Thank you.
Is there debate? Representative Josephson.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to be an auctioneer. I got to talk fast. Madam Speaker, first of all, let me go over the points from the maker of the amendment. The maker of the amendment said there's a law that says employees of this building can't get bonuses. That's true. But one might imagine that there would be policy reasons, political reasons why that would be true. By itself, it suggests that the other agencies can get bonuses. Now, the maker of the amendment noted that our attorney said these were illegal, but he conceded that with substantive legislation that I think will be forthcoming, perhaps out of our Judiciary Committee, there could be what's called a temporary act that would bookend these bonuses. These bonuses are direly needed. I have been the chairman of the Department of Law Subcommittee for 4 years, and every year the department comes to me and they want to spend the better part of a day talking about the turnover in their agency. They are losing prosecutors. They are losing civil attorneys. The same thing is happening in the other attorney agencies, PDs and OPA. Just this morning, I got an email from an attorney with the department who noted that the oil and gas sector in particular, because those members can leave and earn 3 times the salary, are hemorrhaging losses. I would note that our own attorney, Ms. Marks, said that substantive legislation may be necessary, so they're not illegal until a law is passed, but we'll pass a law. And I would also note that the Department of Law's attorney noted that such a temporary act was not necessary. He wrote, the legislature has no authority to support a bonus to classified employees. That was our attorney's position, but that he made no such finding, that we did not need a statute. So we've got attorneys with varying positions on this. We have a department that is crying out for help. Yes, we could pass a law to change the pay schedule under Title 39, but those bills are, there's one on the other body, there's one here, and they are right now in State Affairs, their first committee of referral. This can't wait. The other thing I would note real quickly is
Representative Josephson, you're out of time. Sorry. Representative Clayman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to rise in opposition to this amendment. I think one of our most essential public safety function is making sure that we have an able, capable, and hardworking group of prosecutors across the state. And these bonuses are actually in place in large part to make it so that we can be competitive on a regional basis with Washington State, Oregon, other states that actually pay their prosecutors much better than we're paying our prosecutors. And so our ability to fill the vacancies that are a crying problem in the Alaska Department of Law and are essential to our be able to perform our public safety function would be threatened by this amendment. So I strongly urge a no vote on this amendment and allow the bonuses that are part of the budget today to go forward so that the Department of Law can actually successfully recruit prosecutors and keep prosecutors. We have a shortage of senior prosecutors in the Department of Law as well, partly because we can't compete salary-wise, and so this gives us a chance to start being more competitive salary-wise. It doesn't completely solve the need for additional resources for prosecutors, but it's a good start. So I oppose this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Vance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I, too, have been in the Judiciary Budget Subcommittee and have heard the concerns from the department about our the important aspect of our justice system with our attorneys in the turnover rate is highly concerning. So I opposed this amendment in the budget process because it's a short-term fix. We need a long-term solution so that we can provide swifter justice, if you will, and make sure that we have the personnel, the attorneys that can be able to address the needs and the backlog that we have in our judicial system. However, I can't support, I'm going to support this amendment to remove the funding for this year, partly because I want to remain consistent with what how I voted in the subcommittee, but also there's legal concerns around this. And anytime that there are legal concerns, differing opinions about the actions that we take, I think that it should give us pause. And because there are bills moving in committee, I think that we should take a thorough examination of those, and we can prioritize those in this process and be able to use effective dates to be able to give the financial tools necessary to the Department of Law. But I don't feel that adding the bonuses in the budget is the way to do that at this time.
Thank you. Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sign-on and relocation bonuses are happening, have been happening, continue to happen. We hear about them all the time when we're asking about issues in our various departments. Heard it again, all over again this year in Budget Subcommittee. Also wanted to highlight, it didn't get mentioned earlier, I don't think, align myself with the comments of the gentleman who spoke earlier, closer to the back row, but also need to highlight Commerce, Community, and Economic Development. We heard from them in Budget Subcommittee, particularly with the Division of Corporations, Business, and Professional Licensing. They have the highest vacancy rate, with 25% of positions being vacant in 2021. It was double the 12% rate in 2018. They have incredible turnover. persistent vacancies, and it's impacting the speed of licensure, which then impacts how quickly businesses and professionals can get to work doing the businesses that Alaskans rely on them to do. This is a small step in the right direction. I do share concerns from my colleague from Homer that we do also need a longer-term plan, but this is something that we need right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative McCabe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Not sure that adverse inference is a good argument in this case. In other words, saying that because we're only limiting bonuses that we can't get them in this building, that means that everybody else can get them. That's an adverse inference argument, and that just doesn't quite fit. Everybody's crying for employees. Everybody is losing employees. Everybody can't find employees. Employees seem to be going elsewhere. I'm not real sure where they're all going, but everybody's crying for employees. If this was a problem for 4 years, if we've heard about this for 4 years in the Judiciary Finance Subcommittee, then where's the bill? I think we're using time compression again here, putting this into a budget bill at the last minute, putting it through finance and trying to cram it through to make sure it gets through. I think we need to do it right. This is another willy-nilly project. We're just throwing a little bit of money at this and see if we can resolve the problem that way. Let's resolve the systemic problem properly with the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Tar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to rise in opposition of this amendment. And in addition to, talking about losing folks, I just want to remind folks, we all have a shared interest in improving public safety in our state. At least we talk about that a lot on the floor. And most of the cases that these folks are going to be working on, as it relates to the Department of Law folks, are going to extend over multiple years. And, the reason there are delays in cases and things, Alaskans achieving justice when crimes have been committed against them is because a lot of this turnover happens. And when you bring somebody new on, they need time to get up to speed on that particular case so they can provide effective counsel. That means they're going to ask for delays from the court. So, it's not just about, sort of talking about it from the employee point of view, but it's so critical that we can have these people in place if we want to improve public safety and address some of our most persistent problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kirka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I share the concerns of the Chair of Judiciary, but identify with remarks from the member from Homer. I think we should be following the law on this, and the law needs to be changed. But for now, we should follow the law, just like on the PFD. And there is a problem. The Chair of Judiciary is correct. There is a problem with being able to be competitive, and it's causing a hiring problem. It's causing a problem getting competent individuals working for the state. But I think the problem, Madam Speaker, is found in the statute, and that means a policy change. And I don't think it can be fixed. And I think that these bonuses don't fix the problem anyways. In any way, so I support the amendment. I think we should follow the law.
Representative LeBon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I stand in support of this amendment. Paying bonuses is a slippery slope, and I think it's a big step in the wrong direction. Every agency could make the same argument about paying bonuses to solidify their employment ranks in the various departments, and where do you draw the line? And I'm equally concerned with the maker of this amendment that we're taking a step that's in the wrong direction, a fairness question, and in that way, Madam Speaker, I support this amendment.
Representative Rasmuson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to expand a little bit on the comments from my colleague of East Anchorage. We have children who are currently in the judicial process who are victims of crime, and I think that every year that it takes to extend a trial because we have turnover or because the courts had to close because of COVID or whatever the case may be, they deserve swift justice. And the way that we can do that is by staffing up our departments. The department has asked for these tools and bonuses. We have a mechanism to pass statutes that we know need to be passed regardless. But we need to be able to provide the department with the tools that they need to bring on and retain staff. And if nothing else, I mean, think about every year that we're taking away from a child's youth that they're being dragged out through a court process, and I just don't think that that's right. So I will be opposing this amendment.
Further debate. Representative Wool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We went through this topic extensively in finance recently, and there's a lot of other kind of bonuses too for state troopers, hiring bonuses, corrections, and so forth. And I believe some of those were in the budget last year that we passed, and we were told in finance that was illegal, that was against the law. But we passed them, and guess what? They got their bonuses, and we're making hiring advances because of that. And whether Department of Law disagrees with Ledge Legal, they can fight it out in the courts. But I think the important thing is getting these jobs filled. We've heard there's lack of people in these areas, in these attorneys, in these partially exempt positions. We've also heard from Ledge Legal that it is not against the law. I think the real thing we need to do is get people in these jobs so we can serve the public, and that's the most important thing. And I guess I have a question for the maker of the amendment. The amendment amounts to about $450,000, and I don't know where that number comes from because I believe the amount should be more than that if all the bonuses were paid through. And speaking of law, there are other laws we don't follow. The property tax exemption for senior citizens, I don't see anyone putting forth an amendment for that. That's a law we don't follow. So I think the real thing is we need to get these bonuses to get people in these jobs and let the courts battle it out if they want to.
Further debate. Representative Cronk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm standing in support of this amendment, and if we're going to write, every committee that I've listened to, we're having a hard time hiring people. So if we're going to do this, are we just going to step out of the box and give bonuses to every employee? I mean, obviously we have a teacher shortage. Are we going to start that? So thank you.
Thank you. Further debate. Representative Thompson, in wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the discussion and the debate on this. My colleague, two seats to my right, brought it up that they cannot hire enough attorneys, that they can't keep them. Well, it should be pretty obvious that there should be a salary study done and have it done correctly to where we have legislation that corrects what their problems are and why they can't retain or hire attorneys. My colleague behind me brought up that there's a bill that is in process. It should have a fiscal note so we can see what we're talking about. It hasn't passed yet, and it's in the process in a committee at this time. So, to me, it looks like we're giving bonuses to some people in some agencies and not to other people, their colleagues that work in that same agency. So how are we funding these things, and why are we not following our own rules and doing it with legislation that would approve bonuses down the road as they move forward? Change the legislation if we don't like it, but let's, in the meantime, start looking at reality that we are not doing it the way it's supposed to be done by our own laws and our own rules from 2005 when we said no more bonuses. So let's do it properly. Let's do this, the salary study. Let's take a look at what needs to be changed, and then we can change things to do it properly and legally. I don't know why we are getting some of these bonuses out. I have no idea, but are we funding empty positions and using that money to give the bonuses to others or not? I have no idea if that's what's being done. But I'm a little bit bothered with the way we're doing it. So I'd appreciate it if you'd pass the green button and get us back on track with what is in the laws.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 42 to committee substitute House Bill 281 pass the House? Members may proceed to vote. Brief it is. Would the House please come back to order? Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall amendment number 42 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 pass the House? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
19 yeas, 20 nays.
With 19 yeas and 20 nays, amendment number 42 has failed to pass the House. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 43 by Representative Carpenter, beginning page 82, lines 16 through 20.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Amendment 43.
There's been an objection. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Simple amendment. It removes the inflation proofing, approximately $1 billion that's in the budget, transfer from the ERA to the corpus of the permanent fund. We have had $8 billion transferred over the last couple of years from the earnings reserve to the corpus, and whether the permanent fund corporation wants to consider those $8 billion inflation proofing or not, they have the same effect. The first four, 2 years ago, was considered inflation proofing. Last year's $4 billion transfer was not considered inflation proofing, but again, it still has the same effect. We do not need to transfer $1 billion this year in order to inflation proof. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in respectful opposition to this particular amendment. I think it's generally good fiscal policy and prudent that we do what we can to protect the value of the permanent fund. When we want to be able to distribute PFDs not just to today but into the future, we need to have a healthy permanent fund that can generate the kind of revenue so that we can distribute PFDs to our children and grandchildren, et cetera. So I oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Prox.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in favor of this amendment. The inflation, or the permanent fund, is invested largely in equities and et cetera now, and it is self-inflation proofing. To that extent, I don't think it is necessary to add more money to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kurka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment. I won't belabor the points that the presenter already made. We've already inflation-proofed heavily in advance. And I see this, Madam Speaker, and I can't speak to the motives, but I see this as an effort to squirrel away the money that's owed to the people in the form of dividends.
Thank you. Representative McCabe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I couldn't agree more. Let's face it, we're lying to the public, essentially. Maybe that's too strong a word. We're trying to blow smoke up their skirt, if you will, whatever. If we don't have a permanent fund corporation that can't beat inflation, then we have a huge problem, a bigger systemic problem than we think we do. We're just adding $1 billion to savings. It's not inflation proofing, it's just adding money to savings. There is a stated goal from some in the other body, frankly, to get to $100 billion with this fund. They want that because they know that at a 5% POMV, it'll give us $5 billion into the operating budget, and eventually all that $5 billion, based on all the conversation we've been having here, will go to state operating budget. So it is sort of disingenuous to say that this $1 billion into savings, essentially adding to savings, is going to sort of protect or save anything for the dividend for our children. because we should be focusing our children. That's been stated here many times this morning. And frankly, I just wonder, my question is who's inflation proofing for our citizens right now? Why are we not concerned about our citizens, our voters, and their children right now? What we're planning to give them for a permanent fund, for a dividend rather, is a pittance compared to what they're going to need, and what they need now and what they're going to need in the next year. And we have totally turned our backs on them and their children. So saying that this $1 billion that we're putting into savings, which is not inflation proofing, is somehow going to save the dividend for our children at some point in the future, sorry, not buying that one.
Is there further, Representative Laban?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I will acknowledge that this is not necessarily inflation proofing, and I agree with the comments by the members that make that claim. It's a valid claim to make, but it's also a valid action for this body to take to protect the long-term sustainability of the Alaska Permanent Fund. And I will draw everyone's attention to not just today and not just to the generation of Alaskans that live here today, but to yet unborn Alaskans that will appreciate, I could say, $100 billion is not necessarily a bad thing, or even more. There is a reason to grow an endowment, and not just to protect it from inflation, but to grow an endowment, a public purpose endowment, which the Alaska Permanent Fund is. And I have no issue with the deposit being made to the principal. And if you look over the life of the Alaska Permanent Fund, there's been a number of deposits made. And they haven't been called inflation proofing. That's a recent term. But there's a reason that fund is now worth $82 billion. It's because legislatures prior to our own have made an effort to build that fund. One of those efforts is not to draw from the permanent fund earnings reserve account in a manner that impairs the long-term sustainability of the fund. And those actions predate us by 20, 30, 40 years. Prior legislatures have taken action to make sure that that fund has grown. And yes, we're a beneficiary of it, but I also look ahead, and I'm so happy that we have taken these types of actions, prior legislatures and the current one, to protect the fund for generations yet unborn. So I oppose this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Foster.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose this amendment. Currently, the budget does move $1 billion from the earnings reserve account to the permanent fund corpus. This occurs in most years. It's normally a normal budget action item that occurs. It's good for those folks who don't want to see government spending because it takes money off the table. The earnings or the permanent fund corpus is, of course, constitutionally protected. And so, again, we can't take money from that. If you put money into it, into the permanent fund corpus, we don't have access to that to spend for other things. And so with that, I think putting the money into the corpus protects the permanent fund. So with that, I will be opposing this amendment.
Thank you. Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support this. There's an old phrase, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And the money that exists currently is worth less than it was a year ago. I could buy fuel for $2.18 a gallon. Today it's $5.49. And maybe next year it's going to be $10. And so to be able to give money to the people and the permanent fund dividend is appropriate so they could buy the food, they could have that there. But right now people are hoarding food, they're hoarding fuel because they don't know what their money is going to be worth, which will be much less. So they're inflation proofing by getting items to be able to secure their existence. A comment was made that it takes money off the table, and I think that's well said. By doing this, takes money off, or food off the table, fuel off of the ability for our people of Alaska. And so I support this amendment because we have no intent to deprive the people of Alaska to live. And that's what we're doing if we're moving it to this permanent fund corpus at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Vance.
Madam Speaker, it amazes me how quickly we suffer from amnesia. How quickly we forget the conversations from just a year, 2-3 years ago, how we were asking ourselves how much money we had on hand as a state because we saw our savings quickly dwindling. We wanted to know how fluid the money that we had available was to us and the impacts of being able to utilize that money, and would it harm our investments? And I just recently heard a conversation that we could not, that if we distributed a full statutory dividend, that it would reduce the amount in the ERA that would be detrimental because we need at least a 3-year cushion. And I want to be respectful to those members who feel that, but this transfer of more than $1 billion to the corpus does not help our ability to be able to plan and be nimble for what we don't know is going to come next year. That money in the earnings reserve is available to us if there happens to be an emergency that we need to utilize. I pray we don't. I would prefer not to touch it. I believe it's there for the people. However, once the money goes into the corpus, by our Constitution, it is not available to us. We have shrunk down our savings. This is an extra little pocket that if there was some kind of huge disaster, that we would have that money available. The short-term gain of our oil money right now, I want to remind us, is temporary. We cannot forget just the conversations that we had last year. And I think that moving this $1 billion is not a safe bet for us right now. It's too soon. We don't know what the future holds, and I will be supporting this amendment today.
Thank you. Representative Clayman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to note that when I talked with constituents about this very topic last year when we transferred $4 billion from the earnings reserve to the principal, and the governor somehow through error or whatever didn't veto it, the constituents said, "This is great. Can you do that again next year?" And I said, "We'll do our best." Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Representative Crunk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I really just have a question. We're transferring this $1 billion to the corpus, and I guess my question is, why wouldn't we transfer this $1 billion to the CBR, the savings that we've depleted? Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Brief it is. Brief it is. Will the House please come to order? Just for clarification, there will be no amendments to amendments taken. We've already set 2 o'clock on 281. It will be, I will give you a couple hours, it will be 4 o'clock today on 282. So, Representative McKay on amendment number 43. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you. So a point of information.
Yes, sir.
If during discussion on our budget amendments today,
Yes, sir.
it becomes clear that there needs to be an amendment to an amendment, but it has not been submitted prior to your deadline, are we still going to take that up?
Representative Carpenter, we will take each, if there deems to be an amendment that needs to be made to an amendment, it will be at the pleasure of the body.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Representative McKay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With regard to Amendment 43, I stand in support of this amendment. What I would propose is we should follow our own laws. Article 9, Section 17, Budget Reserve Fund. Section D requires us to repay the constitutional budget reserve when we have good years, which we are having now. So we're supposed to repay the constitutional budget reserve for funds that we've taken out previously. I don't serve on the Finance Committee. I don't proclaim to be an expert on this, but it seems to me that that would be a better purpose for this $1.039 billion. Furthermore, as you know, I come from the private sector. My goal is to have a flourishing, growing, prospering private sector in Alaska. What I'm concerned with after arriving here in Juneau last year was I see a definite effort to build the permanent fund up to a level where it could sustain government almost completely. The result of that, unintended or intended, is that the need for a flourishing private sector is decreased. So the permanent fund actually is a blessing and a curse at the same time. I think that the folks back home watching these proceedings should be aware that Alaska could become basically a park if the state government can live off a trust fund and not need a private sector to produce wealth to sustain our state budget. So I'm very concerned about the permanent fund becoming too large, too big of an endowment, where you would not need a wealth-producing private sector anymore. So those are my comments, and I support Amendment 43 for those reasons. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I appreciate the sponsor for bringing forward this amendment and the previous speaker also for some points well made. I think this vote, more than maybe any other we've had today or any time this week, maybe this year, takes us to the question of two competing priorities. You know, one priority is, has been spoken of many times, how do we get the permanent fund to $100 billion? And that is a goal of some. And today we stand at $82.4 billion as of the last report. With another $17.6 billion, we'll have reached that milestone of $100 billion in the permanent fund. But that $100 billion, I think, will be an illusory goal. The idea of $100 billion has been said on occasion. It will be big enough at that point, big enough to provide for state services, big enough for some amount of dividends, big enough for many things. What's missing from that equation is that government will be big enough at that point to spend it, because government keeps growing and has year over year. And when we reach $100 billion, I'm quite certain someone will rise to say, well, that was $100 billion before inflation. We need to adjust our $100 billion for inflation, and maybe it'll be $110 billion. And that'll be our new benchmark. Once we reach that benchmark, there'll be a further moving of the goal because, again, government grows. Government won't stop growing, and the more resources are available for government to consume, you can be certain that it will make every effort to do so. Now, the contrary goal, there's the $100 billion permanent fund goal, and then the contrary goal is the dividend. And this $1 billion coming out of our earnings reserve for dividends and now going into our corpus is coming at the expense of Alaskans' dividends.
Thank you. Representative Tarr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to quickly say I think this conversation today is another reminder of why we do need a comprehensive fiscal plan that plots out our future. My only concern with this is that even though we've had the great year and we have the additional $5 billion in the ERA, if we look at that, that's probably enough for a few years. But we know with a fiscal plan, it'll take a couple of years to implement different elements of that and get it started. And so I think we just need to be careful as we think about this. Of course, savings is very important, and I support that. And I would love to see the permanent fund be $100 billion. But if we get to a point where we've transferred so much to the corpus and we don't have a constitutional amendment on the table, we will find ourselves with no funds to fund state government. Whether we like it or not, it's absolutely essential to have a functioning state, to have a functioning government. And so, we need a fiscal plan, and I just felt an opportunity to once again remind us of that responsibility.
Thank you. Representative Wool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question came up yesterday, what is the permanent fund for? I think the member from Nikiski asked that question. Governor Jay Hammond created the permanent fund, and voters backed it. And really, it was because oil is a finite entity, and eventually it will run out. The production of the oil pipeline at peak was 2 million barrels a day. Now we're under 500,000, so less than 25% of peak production. The oil is not going to be around forever, and for whatever various reasons, we can't rely on it forever. They created the permanent fund. We'll build up the fund, which will grow and become an infinite source of wealth, unlike oil, which is a finite source of wealth. That's sort of basic. So what's the oil industry for? Is it to fund government? You could ask the same question. Yes, we fund government with oil, and we've been doing it quite well, although lately, real recently it's been doing well, but over time it's been declining. So that's why we created the permanent fund. That's why we want to build it up. Does it all have to be used every year for government? No. We can create different formulas and different withdrawal percentages, but that's what it's intended for. It truly is. And let's not forget, it dropped about $3 billion in value very recently. So it's not a solid thing that's never going to come down. It goes up and down, and that's all the more reason to back up its value. And if we didn't take that $1 billion, if we left it in the ERA and didn't put it in the permanent fund, does that mean it would automatically go out in permanent fund checks? No, I don't think so. But I think we should protect the fund now and well into the future because we don't know what the future is going to hold.
Thank you. Representative Fields.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. First, a basic mathematical point. Money in the permanent fund does earn significantly higher rates of return than in the CBR, so there are very basic and good financial reasons to save money in the permanent fund. We should save money in both, but if there's a choice between one or the other, we're going to receive higher yields in the permanent fund. Second, yes, of course we should protect and build up the permanent fund so we can sustain our core state obligations and pay dividends without large taxes on individuals or industry. I mean, how lucky are we today? We're the only state that funds our operations mostly through an endowment structure. Think about the thousands of dollars that each family would have to pay in taxes if we didn't have that large and well-managed endowment. The only reason the endowment is as large as it is because we've made these inflation-proofing investments over time. I do want to reference when voters voted in 1976 on a constitutional amendment to create the permanent fund, not a dividend. They specifically said, and the voter pamphlet said, and the Chamber of Commerce at the time said, we're turning a non-renewable resource, oil, into a renewable resource, a permanent fund. So this savings is 100% consistent with our Constitution. The amendment is not consistent with the Constitution. I want to make the point, a robust permanent fund that can ensure we provide public safety, education, transportation, infrastructure, and schools. Tell me what business is going to function without that. Tell me what business is going to want to open when there aren't enough police to nab property thieves. Tell me what business is going to want to operate when we can't maintain our roads and ship products. Tell me what high-earning individual is going to want to move to Alaska if there are 40 kids per classroom and their kid's not going to get a good education. A well-managed permanent fund is good for business. Saving money to improve our fiscal posture over time is wise and conservative. We should reject the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I told myself I'm just not going to do this. I'm not going to stand up and speak, and I just can't help myself, so my apologies to start with. But I can't hold it in anymore. The Constitution does speak to putting money in the constitutional budget reserve and having the balance there. We've taken money out. We owe money. Our audits say that. That's just a simple fact. So it doesn't say that we have to inflation-proof the fund. And one thing I want to make sure that everyone knows is when you take money and put it directly into the permanent fund corpus, you're taking that money away from Alaska. That money will not be invested in Alaska. It's going to be invested around the world, not here in Alaska. That's $1 billion straight out of Alaska to other countries and other parts of the United States, not here. So I'm a big supporter of amendment number 43.
Is there further discussion? Representative Carpenter in wrap-up.
I can always guarantee a PFD of something related to the permanent fund is going to get everybody blood boiling. 2 minutes, right? Okay, so protect the fund. I hear that as a major issue here. People want to protect the fund. I think paying a statutory PFD is the best way to protect the fund, because then the people will care who they send to the legislature, because the legislature is the one that's going to raid the fund. The permanent fund corpus is not touchable unless we act to touch it. There is no jeopardy to the permanent fund. There is jeopardy to a earnings reserve account. And let me remind this body and Alaskans who may be watching that the entire balance of the earnings reserve account is made up of past PFDs that have not been paid. That is the only reason that we have money in the earnings reserve account. And then we invested those unpaid PFDs and gained interest on them to the tune of over $1 billion. And now we want to transfer $1 billion of that money that was not paid in dividends into the corpus of the permanent fund, therefore locking it up in perpetuity. So the question the Alaskans really need to answer is, do you want a government that is funded by a $100 billion permanent fund? Because I just heard recently a legislator in our legislature talking about a $120 billion fund and what that would bring to the state government. So is 120 billion enough for us? Is 150? Is 200 billion? What size of government are we going to have with that size of revenue coming in? Is that what we want? I know there are members in this body that would love to have a state government the size that can be afforded by a $200 billion permanent fund. It sounds like a totalitarian state to me, a very heavy-handed government. The question we ought to be asking ourselves is, out of all of the discussion about the permanent fund earnings, where is the economy? How is the economy being tied to that decision of what we do with the money? That is what really matters to Alaskans.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? Question is, should amendment number 43 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 pass the House? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
19 yeas, 20 nays.
With 19 yeas and 20 nays, amendment number 43 has failed to pass the House. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 44 by Representative Kirka, beginning page 18, line 16.
Representative Kirka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move amendment number 44.
There's been an objection. Representative Kirka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 44 is the same language that passed this body last year in the budget. The only slight difference is that it also includes the same language in the amendment to the cross-appropriation language in the Department of Health budget of $10 million that they can transfer from one appropriation to the other. What this amendment does is it precludes the Department of Health from funding abortion. In the structural language for Medicaid and Medicaid services, it said that Medicaid and Medicaid services, except for services relating to or for abortion, and it also cuts $350,000 from the Medicaid budget, which is a very, very small estimate of how much the state of Alaska pays every year to kill kids in the womb, Madam Speaker. Estimates are from 2019. I don't have the most recent ITOP report numbers in front of me, but 537 in-state abortions were paid for with our state treasury, Madam Speaker, plus an additional 200 out of state. Madam Speaker, I can't think of a greater injustice, and the legislature has consistently said we don't want to pay for abortions. I think it's high time, instead of using intent language, we again, like last year, put this language in the budget to make it very clear that this body is not interested in paying for abortions.
Representative Josephson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose the amendment. I always believe that the fairer sex is in a better position to speak to this than me. But this was my department to oversee in the subcommittee stage, and so I want to mention a couple of things. The first thing I would note is this is an attempt to create a new appropriation line, and I'm very experienced at this effort, and I will tell you that the department will ignore it, and they'll especially ignore this because they have to. This will not prohibit the department from doing anything. The department is compelled by decision after decision to fund general relief medical abortions, and it's going to do it. I guarantee it. It will be court ordered to under State versus Planned Parenthood. That's a 2001 decision. And essentially, the court said that reproductive choice is a private matter, protected, and will be treated like other women's health issues. And if we can't prohibit, for example, a mammogram, then we can't prohibit an abortion. That is the state of the law. The other thing I will note is that our own legal research division notes that costs associated with these lawsuits were, for example, in 2016, over $600,000. 2016, a different case, over $2 million. 2007, almost $1 million. 2001, almost $500,000. And so for all those reasons, the court will say that these are constitutionally required services. And by the way, even if for some odd reason the department said we don't care what the court orders, it will simply reach into some agency. Essentially what it would do is if we deprive it of this sort of money, it will find the money because it's required to. So for all of those reasons, I understand that this may pass, and I have respect for the opposing position. My household donates to Planned Parenthood and the Crisis Pregnancy Center. So I get this issue, and it's very personal, but I oppose the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise in opposition to this amendment. In addition to what the Speaker from District 17 said, an amendment like this that does not have protections in it against rape, against incest, or against the mother's health puts our entire Medicaid funding at risk. And that's not something I'm willing to go forward with. Additionally, on the floor here recently it was said, when things we pass or deal with on the floor might be against the law, that should give us pause. And I agree with that, and that's exactly what we're dealing with here. Because not once, not twice, not 3 times, yes, 3 times, this has been decided by our state Supreme Court over the past 25 years that this is against our state constitution. And so we're breaking the law by putting this forward, and they would be mandated to, the Department of Health would be mandated to continue moving forward with the funding that in opposition to this amendment. Our Supreme Court said political disapproval does not change equal protection. That is the equal protection law in our Supreme Court is what allows us to continue this process and this practice, because there is no regulation against my body and my health care as a man that is equal to what is put in place against my wife and my daughter in the future and my mother as she was living here. Politicians aren't doctors. We can't know everything that goes into a woman's mind when she's deciding and planning for her family. And we shouldn't put those with lesser means at risk for not being able to plan their family and have that right among themselves. And that's what we're doing today here. Madam Speaker, we've tried this in the past, and we're trying it again, and we know what the outcome is going to be. So join me in voting no, so we don't just make a statement against mothers, but we make a statement with and for families. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative McCabe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I don't have a choice. The right to privacy belongs to everybody. Belongs to me, belongs to you, belongs to men, belongs to women, belongs to children. Our Constitution says that. And our Constitution says that we are responsible for ensuring that right to privacy. I will tell you that I believe the right to privacy belongs to the preborn as well. So we have talked on this floor several times this morning about children. It's all about the children, right? Children to me include the preborn, all the way down to conception. So I don't really care if we have to run it through courts 100 times. We must, as a legislative body, follow the science, and the science is ever evolving. So the court orders from 2001 or from all the way back to Roe versus Wade didn't have the science that we have now. So we talked about following the science on this floor today as well. So I'm sorry. I'm going to support this. I don't really care what Medicaid, it doesn't matter to me. If we have to run it through the courts, let's run it through the courts. Maybe we'll get a different outcome. We have got to start caring about our preborn. That's all there is to it. So this might not be the right place for this. I'm sure it's part of a larger discussion that we should have, but I feel it on my heart, Madam Speaker. Like I say, I wasn't going to speak to this, but I feel that I need to stand up. Somebody needs to stand up. In fact, we all should be standing up for the rights of the preborn, especially with respect to our Constitution and their right to privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Representative Hannan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in opposition to this amendment, and I will remind each other that when we take on the responsibility to assist our poorest citizens with their medical care, that's where our policy ends. We do not get to decide what their medical care is. And abortion is fundamental health care for women. It is their right to choose. It is their right to have birth control. It is their right to make sure they are healthy. It is their right to terminate a pregnancy without a question from someone besides their doctor giving them guidance. And if we were talking about ways to decrease the demand, it's a whole different discussion. But right now, this amendment intends to infringe on the poorest citizens' right to make a choice about their fundamental health care, and I stand vehemently in opposition.
Representative Carpenter.
So here we are in the budget, talking about an amendment with dollar figures in it. The effect of the amendment is to remove state funding for abortion services, and we're having a somewhat of a philosophical or larger policy conversation about abortion. And I get the concept of privacy, and I get the concept of people wanting to have control over their own medical decisions, male or female. You know, we think about it. We didn't have a choice as to which sex we were born. Whether we can bear children or whether we can never bear children wasn't a choice that we were given. The honor of being able to bear children is something that half of us will never have, no matter how much we would want it. I think about the children and who's speaking for them. This amendment is speaking for them. This amendment says state money is not going to be used to end a life. There are other options available. There are options available that children would probably prefer that their mothers choose rather than ending their life. It is a sacrifice for a mother to carry a child to term. It is a sacrifice worth paying because that is a life worth living. And this amendment says we're not going to use state money to end that life before it even has an opportunity to live. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Vance.
We've had this discussion, I think, every year. For some reason, it's hitting me emotionally this year. To the women who are in that position of feeling, of wondering what they should do, if they should consider abortion because they don't know another way out. I want to tell you that there is another way, there is hope. Because the life within you is precious. And carrying children isn't necessarily a sacrifice, it is a privilege. It seems like this becomes a political discussion, but it's not. It shouldn't be. You know, women have been bearing children for thousands of years and doing a pretty fantastic job of it. And the science clearly indicates that that life is a life so much sooner than what we ever realized. And they have rights too. What we have to decide today is what we want to put state funds to, and what we want to put our name to. Do we want it to be on the future generations? To the next men and women who are going to sit here in these seats making decisions for Alaska. I got married at 23. I just turned 23, and we had a 2-year plan. I was going to be a missionary to the Ukraine. And a couple months later, a friend told me that I was pregnant. I was highly unaware, and I didn't believe her because I had a 2-year plan, and I was being responsible. And so I took a pregnancy test, Madam Speaker, but I didn't believe it until I heard her heartbeat, and I saw the little bean on the screen. And that little bean is now a Senate page. And so I want us to remember that this is more than just dollars or what court orders. This is the very lives of our future, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Rauscher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I believe that the discussion that we're having is being fought in the courtrooms right now in the Supreme Court. And someday, I believe that the decision will be overturned. And people are going to realize that when there's a heartbeat, this child is a person. And there are those that just like I do. And there are people who are going to believe that once a baby is conceived, it's a life, just like I do. And I'm going to keep voting the same way. I'm going to vote on this amendment year after year until that happens, because I believe it will happen one day. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Tar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to rise in opposition to this amendment, and I really respect the different positions that people bring here today. I know a lot of it's based on faith. As a person of faith myself, I want to respect those differing views. But what is really sad to me is that we don't see this same passion around ending domestic violence. We don't see the same passion around ending child abuse. We don't see the same passion around ending sexual assault. We don't see the same passion around providing health care for every woman in Alaska, so there wouldn't be women who feel like the only choice they can make is to seek an abortion. We don't provide the same passion around safe housing. We don't provide the same passion around food security for children. Those are the reasons that women are seeking abortion. I have probably more experience than anyone on the floor here in addressing this topic, having previously run a nonprofit organization where we provided direct services to women across Alaska. I have sat with hundreds of women and cried with them as they made the difficult decision of seeking an abortion. I was never part of an experience where it was an easy decision. It is a difficult decision. Women should be able to make this decision privately with their faith leader, with their family, with their doctor. They should be able to do what is in the best interest of their health. And if we really care about ending abortion in Alaska or reducing the numbers, then there are a lot of things we could do. And those are things that are not happening right now. And those are the reasons. So if you're a person sitting here today and you say you're pro-life, you know what? Show me the money. Where are you going to invest in all these services that are essential and are the reason? Sign up to be a foster parent. There's more than 3,000 kids in foster care right now. People need to start speaking with their actions, because your actions will speak a lot louder than just the words here today on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have to say that I believe, without going and quizzing everyone, that there's a whole lot of people that do put their money where their mouth is and put their volunteer work where their mouth is. And I would be remiss in saying in any way that I thought that people here had their beliefs but didn't do more and go above and beyond what they talk about here on the floor. So first, I just wanted to say that I do appreciate all the money that we put into the budget to help those that are less fortunate, that do have housing issues, that do have children that have needs and so on. So that is much appreciated. And I too understand the heartbreak that goes with all the decisions that are made around our children and especially preborn children. But I felt a bit scolded, I guess, when I heard someone say, well, it doesn't matter. This is just going to happen anyway. Doesn't matter what we do here. The administration is going to do this, and this is what's going to happen. And in my opinion, you don't do things that way, and you don't necessarily take your votes that way. You take your votes, the way we take our votes is the way we believe is the right thing to take the vote for, not what the administration might do or someone else might be forced into doing. That's on them. Our vote is on ourselves.
Thank you. Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a hard topic. I usually don't speak to it. I have my convictions about it, and I respect others who have their convictions as well. And I wanted to say thank you to the folks, I think the folks who have a uterus have spoken the most eloquently to it, so thank you for standing up today. I think I'm concerned about this amendment because it paints it with a giant broad stroke. It does not provide any allowances or considerations for issues around an ectopic pregnancy, an unwell mother, an unviable fetus, rape, incest. And I know it conflicts with some folks' ideology, but some people don't want to be pregnant. And from my perspective, that's their right to feel that way. And the decision that they make going forward is between them and their doctor. I do want to say that my pro-choice position is not informed by my own personal comfort with choosing abortion. I think had I become pregnant in my 20s, I was in a situation with a supportive family and a reliable income. I think I probably would have, even if it hadn't been an ideal situation, I would have had that child. If I were to become pregnant now, at the age of 41, after having 2 healthy children, delivered by C-section, where the doctor in my first pregnancy told me that, you would have died 200 years ago if you hadn't had modern medical intervention because things about you make it difficult. If I were to become pregnant now, I would be put in a position where I'm choosing my survival and my ability to raise my 2 boys. Please don't put women in that position. I'm asking you not to do that. For that reason and many, many others, I can't support this amendment.
Representative Zelkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I, just for the sake of brevity, will align my policy perspective, though it is fraught with a lot of complicated considerations, with my colleagues from Anchorage who just spoke, as well as Mountain View, Goldstream, the UMed district, downtown Juneau. I rise for a question for the maker of the amendment upon closing remarks to speak to what certainty there is with respect to the budget implications of this $350,000 decrement, roughly, and the ripple effect that it has on the matching federal funds that come into the state of Alaska to provide Medicaid services, that absent that additional infusion of billions of dollars in economic generation in Alaska's healthcare economy, we would be very much indebted to paying directly. So thank you for the opportunity to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Representative Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I truly appreciate the very heartfelt comments that we've heard on this topic today. And I am going to push the green button on this one, and I would like to remind members that we also have several other pieces of legislation that I would invite you to join me in supporting, one being House Bill 58 for contraceptives.
Representative Rasmussen, we want to stick.
This is related to abortion, Madam Speaker.
But we're referring to amendment number 44.
Which funds abortion.
Right, so we want to,
Yes.
okay.
So I'm asking that members support contraceptives so that those who don't have the financial support of the state to receive an abortion, if this funding is removed, have options over their medical health and choices in their family planning. And that comes through things like contraceptives. I think that we need to be very diligent about funding education if we're going to cut money for abortions, because with more children, there will be more funding needed to pay for their school. And we, as my colleague from East Anchorage noted, we need to make sure that we're protecting Alaskan women from domestic violence and rape so that they don't find themselves in situations where they do need an abortion. This isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. So we need to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. This is the policy position that our body is taking, and I ask for all of your support on the other items that I listed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Gillum.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Like my colleague from Big Lake, I wasn't going to speak on this, but when I was elected, I said I was told I'm going to have to pick 2 or 3 things that I will stand on no matter what, and abortion is one of them. I think we all know what this is. It's our state constitution. Article 1, Section 1 says, I can read it, I'm going to need glasses one of these days.
Permission granted.
That the Constitution is dedicated to the principles that all persons have a natural right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's life. Life begins at conception, has been proven fact. The Constitution states that we have to stand, protect life. Like my colleague from District 31, I tried to be responsible. I have a son. I wouldn't give my son up for anything. So I'm glad that we got pregnant. We weren't ready to be parents, but I'm glad that it happened. We never crossed my mind or my wife's mind for her to have an abortion. The same with my daughter. My daughter got pregnant when she was in college. Every place she went, they said, oh, you can't raise this child, have an abortion. Nobody pushed her into have the child. She had it, and unfortunately, there's issues that I haven't seen my granddaughter in over a year. But abortion was never part of the conversation. So even though I don't believe this bill or this amendment is going to stop abortion, even if there's a law that makes it illegal, we'll never stop abortion, as much as I'd like to see it go away. But I will do what I can. I will push a green button. I do not want my government and my tax dollars paying for abortion.
Thank you. Further, Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I think the topic of sovereignty is important to realize in casting the vote on this amendment. In our state constitution, we have a provision, Article 9, Section 13, dealing with expenditures, which we're about to vote on, expenditure. Our Constitution says no money shall be withdrawn from the Treasury except in accordance with appropriations made by law. This bill before us is an appropriation. If it passes, it will be made by law. We, as the legislature, are the branch authorized by our Constitution to decide whether or not to make that appropriation. Our Constitution says no appropriation, no expense can be made unless we, a sufficient number of us, push a green button and allow that expense to be made. We're not talking about funding that has been historically provided by the federal government for abortion and ending that. We're not Congress. We're not talking about those funds which have been paid year by year by year, authorized by the federal government for abortions for rape, incest, life of the mother. Someone mentioned ectopic pregnancies. Again, life of the mother. Here in Alaska, we have, for some number of decades, gone over and above what the federal government authorizes for abortion. We've said we as a state will make abortion funding a priority. This vote we're about to take is to change that and to say that state abortion funding, the funds we're authorizing to be appropriated, are not going to be authorized in this year's budget. No one else can come in and make that happen without our assent. That's what it means to be sovereign. They can come back next year and ask for it again, and we can say no again, and they can come back for the next 100 years. And if we say no, the expense cannot be paid.
Is there further discussion? In wrap-up, Representative Kirka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the robust discussion. As a member from Big Lake said, we really should all be speaking on this. I want to answer some of the, I guess, not clerical, but technical questions that were asked. There is no, just to be clear, there is no federal requirement to fund abortions with Medicaid. All of the dollars we spend on abortions in Alaska are done with state funds, not federal funds. There is no matching funds for that. Other states, including I believe Michigan, has defunded abortion. They don't fund abortions, and yet they still get their Medicaid funding. And Madam Speaker, even if there was a consequence with Medicaid, even if the federal government was going to match the dollars we spent on abortions and abortion services such as travel for abortions, whatever is entailed, Madam Speaker, I think I speak for many members on the floor, I don't want a partner to kill kids just to get the money. As a member from Palmer mentioned, I'd like to reiterate, Madam Speaker, we should always do the right thing, regardless of what other branches of the government may or may not do. In response to one of the members in regards to domestic violence, I hear her concern. But Madam Speaker, abortion is the ultimate form of domestic violence. I will not, to spare the members, I will not get into gory detail of what that really means. The member from District 10 stole some of my thunder. Madam Speaker, our founders were very wise when they separated our branches of government. And they gave the power of the purse to the legislative branch, not the judiciary, not the executive branch. And they broke into two bodies because it's an incredible power. Like the members from District 10 said, we have the power to push that green button or the red button. It is only up to us. Please press the green button. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 44 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 pass the House? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
21 yeas, 18 nays.
With 21 yeas and 18 nays, amendment number 44 has been adopted. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 45 by Representative Kirka, beginning page 21, following line 18.
Representative Kirka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move amendment number 45.
Madam Speaker, I move and ask unanimous consent that number 45, amendment 45 be tabled.
There's been an objection. Back to order. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 45 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
35 yeas, 4 nays.
With 35 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 45 has been tabled. Brief at ease. Will the House please come back to order? Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 46 by Representatives Vance and Kirka, beginning page 39, following line 3.
Representative Vance.
I will not be moving 46 at this time.
I will be rolling amendment number 46 to the bottom of the calendar. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 47 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 4, following line 10.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Amendment 47.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment 47 be tabled.
Object.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 47 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 4 nays.
With 34 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 47 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 48 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 4, following line 10.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment 48.
Representative McCabe.
Madam Speaker, I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment 48 be tabled.
Object.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 48 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
32 yeas, 6 nays.
With 32 yeas and 6 nays, amendment number 48 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 49 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment 49.
There's been an objection. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I ask unanimous consent that Amendment 49 be tabled.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 49 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
35 yeas, 4 nays.
With 35 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 49 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 50 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment 50.
There's been an objection.
Speaker,
Representative McCabe.
I move and ask unanimous consent that we table Amendment 50.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 50 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 4 nays.
With 34 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 50 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 51 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment 51.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that we table Amendment 51.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Shall amendment number 51 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 4 nays.
With 34 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 51 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 52 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment 52.
Representative McCabe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that Amendment 52 be tabled.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall amendment number 52 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 4 nays.
With 34 yeas and 4 nays, amendment number 52 has been tabled. Madam Clerk.
Amendment number 53 by Representative Eastman, beginning page 77, line 28.
Representative Eastman.
Thank you. I move Amendment number 53.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous assent that Amendment 53 be tabled.
There's been an objection. Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall amendment number 53 to committee substitute for House Bill 281 be tabled? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change their vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
34 yeas, 4 nays.
With 34 yeas and 4 nays, number 53 has failed to pass the House. Brief it is.
Boy, it sure is good to be back and finally not have to listen to that darn elevator music anymore going on in the background when they go at ease. Lots of new bills brought forward here. One of them was like amendment number 42, I believe it was, adding more money into the corpus of the earnings for the permanent fund dividend, removing it out of the earnings reserve account. It's quite ironic that here they were trying to say, well, we can't pay a full PFD because that'll withdraw too much money out of the earnings reserve account. We need to have at least 3 years worth of expenditures sitting there just in case of some god-awful emergency that they might have out there. And lo and behold, when it comes to transferring money back out of their control, now they have no problem doing it. I find it really ironic that they are so willing to just consistently and constantly not follow the laws that they themselves continue to pass, that they say they gotta have. And but yeah, no, the irony behind that we can't spend the money to pay our statutory PFD. The money's not there to be able to pay that. We can't spend that extra money that's sitting there, that 10 billion of the 17 billion that's inside of the earnings reserve account, because if we deplete any of that 10 billion of the 17 billion that's there to be able to be spent, we won't have enough to be able to cover anything else in case of an emergency. But when it comes to transferring $1 billion back out of that account and over into the corpus where nobody's allowed to touch it, now lo and behold, those same ones that says we couldn't spend it, couldn't move it anywhere else, now says, oh, wait a minute, now we can just get it out of there. It doesn't matter if we have enough inside of the earnings reserve account. We got to protect it for the future of all Alaskans and the future of their PFD. And it's very ironic that, you know, the future of the PFD all depends on their fictitious $100 billion number that they want to get the permanent fund dividend up to, the corpus of the account and the ERA. We could be at $100 billion. Our government, we've seen the powers that be that are down there. They would be more than happy to continue to raise the budget, to continue to spend all that extra money that would be coming out from the earnings being created by the corpus every single year. So no matter how much that corpus or that main account grows, I mean, the $82.4 billion is what they just quoted in the last report. Out of that $82.4 billion, they can't pay us a statutory PFD. It would only cost them a little over $6 billion to pay back everything they have stolen from us over all the years. they could completely pay us our past stolen PFDs and our current PFD, full statutory PFD, and still have $3-4 billion extra sitting there if you don't count the other $7 billion that's sitting in there, the $17 billion in the corpus account. So they want to pretend, oh, wait a minute, we just recently lost $3 billion because the market dropped down and blah, blah, blah. Oh, look what happened with all the investments that we had in Russia, the $280 million that really completely destroyed everything that is there inside of the corpus. Oh man, the fund, the permanent fund, just not enough money there. We can never spend it. But hey, I got this government project over here that I would love to be able to add more money into. And well, you know, let's just go ahead and do that. We'll increase our K through 12 by $50 million more. We'll give, public radio another $1.5 million on top of what they're already getting. I mean, $100 million a year just for Big Bird alone, and they still want more money to fund public radio. They can't pay for it themselves. And you look at all of these things that they keep adding out there and just shaking your head. And the last bill that we just heard was for abortions. And all the bill says is that they're just not going to put an appropriation line in there to pay for funding abortions out from the state. Doesn't mean that people can stop going and getting their abortions. Doesn't mean that Medicaid themselves can't stop paying for the abortions. It just means we Alaskans, using our Alaskans taxpayers' money, is not going to be used to pay for abortions. And the arguments out there, my body, my choice, Liz Snyder and her, what about the domestic violence? There's no carve out for them to protect them in this bill of removing that money. Well, there are laws that do that. It's on the federal level. It's not on the state level. Our Alaska Constitution says that all lives matter, and it is a very well-known fact that life begins at conception. And they have yet to disprove that. And until they do, scientifically can disprove it, not just say it's not true, but scientifically disprove it, then I'll start maybe standing behind them. But they haven't been able to do that yet. It's kind of like saying, you know, a man can become a girl and a girl can become a man, but ask that man to go have a baby when he turns himself into a girl, and lo and behold, miraculously, somehow, no matter how much cosmetic changes that person has made, they still can't have a baby. Why is that? Oh, wait a minute, there's a little kind of wrinkle there that's called science. And science says that that is impossible for a man to have a baby. And even the 1%, the 1.7% of the entire 7 billion world population who has the both genders in their body, only 0.2% of those 1.7% actually show any outward signs that they even have a mixed genealogy of both male and female organs. And the majority of them, if I've got my numbers correct, 80% of those people are basically their body functions for the female side of things is still very dominant, and they can have children. But the male side of things, which is about 20% of the 1.7 billion side of that, they end up finding out that their reproduction organs often do not work, and they cannot have children. You know, for a person that is, say, has both of the sexes, neither one of them will be able to work properly all the time, ever. They have never had a documented case where a person that had male and female genes together, that both of those reproductive organs were functional. That's the reason why when you, the only case that we ever have heard of immaculate conception was with Mary and having Jesus, and that's about the only time we've ever heard of that ever happening in history. Science has yet to ever declare that it is possible or found anybody out there that can. And it's really scary when you look at who this entire studies was all based upon in the very beginning. So I wonder where they all went. They all ran away there. And so I've got to answer this phone call, so excuse me here for just a bit. Sorry about making you have to suffer through elevator music once again. I tell you, it just really seems to happen always. Trying to do my normal work on top of doing this, sometimes it gets interesting. And thank you all again for joining in here today. If you have not liked and shared this video, please like and share. Or you could go to the Gavel to Gavel website on KTUU and go and get a copy of it from them there. It is definitely one of those things. Oh, wow, man, is that a blurry picture going on there? Let's see if we can get it to straighten up here just a hair. Oh, wait a minute. There, what? Boy, that's the fuzziest I have seen that become so far. Hey, there we go. Now we've got crystal clear picture going on. And amazing what lighting inside of a room will do when it gets to a little bit different. It just can't keep its autofocus going on there. So again, thank you all for joining us here today. If you haven't liked and shared this video, please like and share. Go to our earlier broadcast, like and share that one. I was able to do commentaries every single time they went into an at ease like this. I had to go to work for the second half, and that's why I'm just getting back now. First half of today, the very first thing out of the block was amendment number 1, the amendment that they heard originally yesterday, number 1, for a statutory PFD, just a slightly different vote. And the only reason why the difference in the vote was they actually had legislators that were missing yesterday there today. And one of the ones that had voted no yesterday was gone when the vote came. So that was the biggest differences between a +1 and a -1 on the vote. That gave it a 19 to 21. Instead of it would have been an 18 to 21 or 19 to 21. 18 to 21, and then things would have been different. We still wouldn't have got it. It would have been like a 20-20 vote in the end of it all. But unfortunately, as always, these legislators just do not seem to know what is the hole from the hole in the ground in their head and which hole they're actually shoving their head down into. More often not, they bent over to go kiss the of some special interest, and their depth perception was a little bit off, and they stuck it all the way up, which is nothing unusual for our legislators down in Juneau. This budget is a good reflection of that. The budget should have been around $4.8 billion at the highest. They have managed to drive that all the way up to $7 billion. We still have yet to get to any of the amendments that reverses the forward funding through K through 12 that they want to have pushed through. And that's an additional $1.33 billion and $1.38 billion. I want to say $1.38 billion, but that's including the $50 million bonus that they gave them this year. That was supposed to be a one-time year bonus. And unless they change the base student allocation law, and if they were to change the base student allocation law, that $50 million bonus that they're giving them this year that increased the budget to increase their budget would change. Will the House please come to order? Oh, there's Louise. She just said, will the House come to order? So we will go ahead and get them back on the record here.
Amendment number 54 by Representative Tuck, beginning page 77, following line 27.
Representative Tuck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I am not going to be offering amendment number 54.
I am going to roll amendment number 54 to the bottom of the calendar. Representative Pakata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that the body consider Amendment 77.
Briefeties. House, please come back to order. The House will stand at recess until 5 p.m.
Okay, so they have completely shut everything down until 5 o'clock today. Not surprising that it's time for them to go all and confer. They're starting to get into the nitty-gritty amendments now that are really focusing on the actual bulk of the budget and where the money is being spent. And these are going to be long and drawn out hours that are going to be ahead of us. Don't know how long past 5 o'clock they're going to go. Will they finish it all today? Hard to say. They're only on like Amendment 50 something at this point in time. They had over 80 amendments. There is a good portion of amendments that was there that have been shuffled to the back. So I would say maybe 40 of the amendments have still yet to be heard at this point or brought forward. Some of them are waiting on other amendments to come forward. And the other amendments that they tabled are to counter those amendments. So it'll be really interesting to hear what happens. Again, thank you all for tuning in right now. Like, share, go to my website, politidic.com. Click that support button. All proceeds go to pay for the Restream services that are streaming this on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook on 2 different channels, Politidic and Politidic Unfiltered. And you can find us on Politidic on both Twitter and YouTube. And make sure to click those notification buttons, to click the like, to click the bell to make sure that you do get notified when we go live. All proceeds goes directly right back into supporting what I am doing here. As you can see by the background behind me, a lot of things are changing around here. I now have walls that are being put in that are inside of the studio here so that I have a nice clean finish. Soon I'll have the window here recovered back again so it's not so bright and we don't have to worry about being casted out by the sunlight so that you actually be able to see me. That's what I was just doing here a second ago, was moving the cameras around again so that it was not getting a direct sunbeam directly into the camera there, which was causing it to have its focusing issues just a moment ago. So we really do appreciate it. If you know of any legislators, assembly members, council members, those that are running for Congress, those that will be running for Senate or the House on both the state and congressional level, and you would like to be interviewed, don't hesitate. Contact me at politidic@politidic.com for the email address and let me know. Bob Lyons, Robert Lyons, I am more than happy to hopefully be having him here to be interviewing. He is running for Congress himself. I believe he is also one of the 51 that has filed, and he was already filed for the normal primary and general election prior to this special election that's now going to be occurring. Hunky Lee, if you're out there watching right now, I would love to do another interview with you. Nicholas Begich, Nick Begich, I would love to do an interview with you. Kelly Chabaka, you too. Anybody out there that is running, I would offer it to Kirka at this point, but legislators are not allowed to campaign while they are in legislation. So his is kind of out at the moment. But there's 51 of you out there that are looking to get some press time. I am more than willing to give it to you. Just expect to have the hardball questions that aren't going to be what you see on CNN where we kiss your butt and have pre-programmed or pre-set up questions for you that we're looking to get down to the nitty-gritty. I will be asking questions that normally you would prefer not to be asked, or you go and talk about in private meetings with your particular group or party or constituents that you hopefully will vote for you because they semi-align with your values, or they do align with your values. And this gives an opportunity of more spread out there. If anybody has events that they got going on, they're going to go speaking at private events, different areas around the state, and they would like to have me come and live stream them, let me know. I am more than happy to show up and come and do that for you. And as always, all contributions that you can send my direction by going to politidic.com and clicking that support button helps pay to make all of that happen. So thank you all for your support. I will see you guys all here again at 5 o'clock today.